If you're not familiar with him, you gotta read Atomic Habits. Such a smart guy. He is consistently like #1 New York best time seller list week after week after week. Um, does a tremendous job with habits. We review his stuff almost every year as a company, and this quote is solid. It's straight on, man. It's so true.
So you might have big visions and goals for your business, but if you don't have the systems in place, then your team can't support you on achieving those goals. And that's why I created the 4 C's of playbooks that my team uses every day. The first one is camcorder, essentially recording yourself doing the work. Anytime I'm creating slides or working on an edit or an outline, I record myself talking out loud about what I'm doing, because someday, maybe, hopefully soon, I'll be able to hire somebody to take that part over. So again, I could be an editor, not an author. The second is course. What you want is a detailed document of how to perform a task. So for example, I have a financial team. They have a detailed list of all the processes that they use to get the books balanced, to do accounts receivable, to pull the reports for the different team leads. And essentially it's a course in the document that outlines everything so that it's easy to follow. Number 3 is cadence. Think about every area of your business has a cadence for doing things every hour, every day, every week, or every month. On a daily basis, it could be posting your stuff on social media. On a weekly basis, it could be pulling the report to see if any of the stuff is working. On a monthly basis, it's coming up with the ideas for the next month. And number 4 is checklists. And this is one of my favorites because...
So in case they don't show this slide again, I wanted to pause here. To me, this seems a little more complicated than it needs to, because again, they're trying to create systems that are easy to reference. Like, oh, have you heard of the 4 C's of a playbook by Dan Martell? It's easy to reference. It's a signature system. And I get that. And, you know, we do the same thing. I call it the 3.3 system for our stuff. I would say the camcorder method is good. I feel like a better practice is to actually do the camcorder method while teaching the person who's going to do the task. I honestly don't want to spend time recording the things that I do with the thought that eventually someone might do this for me. So usually when I'm creating a process, especially in the small business owner in the early days when we didn't have any processes, I already had someone in mind that I was going to have do this task for me instead of me. So bring them in. And if it's a whole new position, I would say wait until they're hired. Then you can set up these things. You can use a software like Camtasia. I'm sure there's other softwares that grab the screen, record the audio, and then you can do it. And now with the person who's going to be doing the job, they can ask their questions that maybe you're not going to even know that they're going to ask. Then through the screen grabbing with your audio, you could probably use a summary tool or ask your assistant to do it. And then break up that camcorder recording into these ideas that he's talking about here of the course, a cadence, a checklist. So for us, to me, this is all one standard operating procedure that shows how to do it. It shows the different steps involved. It tells you how often it needs to be done. And if there's specific tasks or a specific checklist of certain tasks, because it needs to be done the same way every single time, that's all part of the same thing. So in my mind, preparing a tax return, our training includes all 4 of these elements in the one training for that one thing. That's the way I look at this. Again, his principles are solid. It looks a little bit different in our company.
Essentially, it's a high-level checklist of the things that should have been done if somebody goes to complete something. Think about the difference between a pilot doing a checklist taking off in the plane versus learning how to fly the plane. How to fly the plane is like the course, and then the checklist is what a pilot uses to make sure that there's air in the tire before they take off. They're not going to learn how to fill up the tire with air in the checklist. That's like a final checklist, which is completely different from the playbook and the course. But now that you got your time back.
Yeah, and I get that, and that makes sense. In our company, we just call them job aids. And so once someone's done the training on how to do things, there is an easy checklist that they can use that should help them remember the stuff of the training, have them do the how in the right order. So we provide both. It's not just, hey, watch this training. It's also, here's the resource that you can access anytime that aids you in doing the job. Hence, we call it a job aid.
But now that you got your time back, how should you structure your day? Which brings us to chapter 8, your perfect week. One of my friends, every time I call him, he always answers, which makes me wonder, how busy is this freaking dude? I don't know about you, but I like to get a lot of things done, which means that I've allocated my time, which means when I'm doing it, I don't answer my phone because I can't take the disruption. There's this great quote that says, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, meaning that...
It's a good quote. I think he's being a little bit harsh to his friend who's always available on the phone. It could be the guy has structured his life in such a way that he doesn't have a lot of tasks he needs to do, and he's at a stage in his entrepreneurship that he's able to take a call. Not to mention, it's Dan Martell. Like, what friend isn't going to pick up the phone from Dan Martell if he calls? Like, this is a solid business dude with solid business principles, lots of business success. He's the type of person you'd want to be friends with. So I have people like that. If they call, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to pick up the phone call out of respect to the person because you have so much admiration for them. Or maybe it's a follow-up question and you're like, oh, I know this. I know Dan's busy. He's finally calling me. I'm going to pick up. That, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I also, just in general, the perfect week. I understand, like, altruistically, I don't know the right use of that word, but it's cool to think about a hypothetical. What does a perfect week look like? I've never had a perfect week. Fires always pop up as a business owner that definitely make that day or that hour not enjoyable, which means it can't be a perfect week. But I think from a concept of, like, I guess if you're going to structure your day, how do you do that in a way so that you have the best chance for a perfect week? I just believe in building in white space in my calendar, knowing it's not a matter of if, but when. When is something going to pop up on my plate as the owner of the company that I wasn't planning for? I'd rather have that space built in. So I guess in some world, that is my perfect week, to have the space, not knowing what the emergency is going to be, but I have the ability to take care of the emergency if it pops up. And in the meantime, there's enough stuff going on that I have a list of things I can always be working on. So if there's not an emergency during that white space, I'm going to be working on some stuff.
If you've got a lot of stuff you want to do with your life, you need to design your week. That's why I created this framework called the perfect week, which is designing the outline of all the things that you want to have happen in a week that would tell you you had an incredible week.
That graphic was fast, but he included some personal stuff on there. I am a big proponent of work-life harmony. So I agree with that completely. I think if you haven't read my books, especially the ones about the 3.3 rule, I definitely have some thoughts on the 40-hour work week. So anyways, I agree that you should be adding personal things into your calendar.
I always look at a few key areas of my life. First off, I look at my big rocks. I want to know what are the things when it comes to generating revenue or income in my life, or maintaining the relationships.
That's a traction concept, and I don't know if he even gave it, if he created it, but if you've ever done that exercise, you have big rocks, medium rocks, small rocks. If you put in the small rocks first, which most people operate their life that way, and then medium rocks and then the big rocks, they don't all fit. But if you put in the big rocks first, then the medium rocks, and then the small rocks, they all fit in the same container. So same amount of tasks, but organized the right way, they all fit. And so, yeah, organize your week in a way so you're hitting those big goals first, because nothing is more important than the biggest goals. That's why you labeled them your biggest goals. So do those first, then do the other stuff. It's a solid principle.
Maintaining my body. These are big rocks, and those gotta go first into the outline of my perfect week. The second is I'm always looking to grab different types.
Maintaining his body. Your health is super important. Too many business owners overlook it. Please take care of your health. Build in time to be healthy, please.
Types of moments where I could batch work together, 2-3 hours of time to just get it all done at the same time. The third is I'm always scheduling my calendar for energy.
Batching focus blocks together, I agree with. I don't necessarily agree with certain things. I know some people advise, like, on Monday at this time is my block for client meetings, and on Wednesday at this time is my time for email. I think there's certain tasks that need to happen when they need to happen, and so I feel like if it's going to affect customer experience, you need to think about your focus blocks. But anyway, so just a little difference of opinion there on the way you batch things. I do agree with batching because the 3.3 rule is focus, absolute focus. Don't pick up that phone call during your focus block, of course, unless it's someone that's like, dude, it's okay. I can take a break. I need to talk to this guy. Work up to 3 hours, followed up by an intentional break. It will change your life.
I know in the morning, I've got more headspace to do creative work and really connect to my creator. Whereas in the afternoon, because I have a little bit of a lull from an energy point of view, that's when I do all my calls. I want to talk to people. I want to be around people. So understanding how your energy flows is
definitely difference of how we are as different people. Again, math and art, Dan Martell and I are opposites. If I have low energy as an introvert, I am not going to want to pick up the phone and talk to people. But he's a solid marketer. If I had to guess, I don't know if he would think of himself as an extrovert. He's definitely more extroverted than I am. So that's interesting. He said, when I have a lull in energy, I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to people. That's not when I would do it. So you just need to be aware of yourself. Have the self-awareness of what works for you and identify. It's cool that he knows when he's going to have his typical lull. If you live the 3.3 rule, you actually minimize those periods of time when you actually are going to have that lull. Most people would say it's the early afternoon. With the 3.3 rule, we've had some clients who expressed that just totally disappeared from their life, so they don't have any energy lull. But if you do know when there's going to be a time that your energy is low, make sure you pick a task that works for you, that you can still be productive during that time.
Game changer. And the fourth thing is, once I look at my perfect week, I'm always trying to figure out how can I have net time. Net time stands for no extra time. Anytime I can bring two things together. So for example, every Tuesday I do a founder's hike where I allow anybody in the world to come hike with me to ask me questions. So that way I'm not splitting up my day doing coffee meetings.
I mean, very cool of him to do that. He obviously likes to be healthy and hike. And so, if I had to guess, he likes talking to people. Look, I'm not against talking to people, but some of us don't love it that much. If I were to go on a hike, I would want to do that as a recharge. And in order for that to happen, I'd need to be alone. I need silence to recharge a lot of times. But again, this is a good principle. He's combining two things, so that's good.
My day doing coffee meetings all the time. I like to take travel time. I'll invite team members to travel with me so I can cross train them and pour in.
I love that idea. I think that does take a certain financial level of success. But again, I like the principle. Try to be as productive and efficient as possible. That's effectively what he's saying here.
Into them to make sure that they get trained up. I've never had dinner with one person one-on-one ever. I've always invited 3 or 4 other people because
I love one-on-one dinners. As an introvert, I feel like it's more intimate. I create a better relationship with that one person. I know that they have their undivided attention. In a big group as an introvert, I know I'm not going to speak up as much. And so in those scenarios, usually it's the other extroverted people who become the obnoxious ones and they just talk all the time. So I don't necessarily agree with this principle. I like smaller settings, but again, it works for him. And the principle is, if you can combine a couple things and be super efficient with your time, then do it. I don't think you necessarily need to say, hey, I want to be a direct copy of Dan Martell, which I don't think he's asking of you anyways. But he has reached a level of success. And sometimes we see these really successful people and say like, well, I have to be exactly like them. You don't. So follow the principle. If what he's the actual specific example he's giving doesn't work for you, the principle is still solid.
My conversation might not take the whole 2 hours, and then they can get some value from meeting other people, and I get to hear what's going on in everybody's life. So these are all.
Maybe that's why he's healthy. I've never taken 2 hours to eat a meal, unless it's at a restaurant that purposely has a service designed to take that long. Well, that was funny to me.
These are all opportunities to find net time. You have to design your life because it either happens by design or it happens by default. And if you don't design it yourself, other people will take from it. But even with a structure, you might still be wasting your time. Which brings us to chapter 9, the only 4 time hacks you need. I'll just make these quick because they're so freaking powerful. The first one is 50 to fix it. Everybody in any one of my companies has a $50 budget to fix any problem they see fit, and the only rule is they have to tell their leader. No questions asked, they will always get paid back. The second one is repeat agenda. For a lot of meetings, like my executive assistant meeting that I have every day, or
solid feedback. Depending on your business, you might choose a different number. With our price point with our tax clients, I would go up to like $100 to fix anything, and managers above that, maybe $250. Department heads maybe $5,000 or something, because department heads are on the leadership team, they understand stuff. Then anything above $5,000, I'd want to have a say in it, but solid principle.
Agenda. For a lot of meetings, like my executive assistant meeting that I have every day, or my weekly meeting with my wife that I have every week, I have a repeat agenda system, and I always update it or refine it if I feel like there's certain topics that we're not covering that need to be reviewed on a specific cadence. The third is depth.
I understand the efficiency of that. The few times I've done repeat agendas, it does become stale. So just be aware of that and figure out ways to make it not stale.
The third is definition of done. And this is the most powerful. It's asking your
definition of done, 100% super powerful. We learned this from a company called The Great Assistant. When you tell someone what you want them to do and you delegate it, you have to tell them what done looks like.
Asking yourself the question when you delegate, what does done look like? If you can just start with that question when you delegate and you're very descriptive to the person that's doing the work for you, usually you give them all the nuance and the context for them to be incredibly successful on the criteria that you're looking for to have that thing done. The fourth is the 1-3-1 rule, and this one will change your life. Essentially, people at the front line have
this one will change your life. Again, such a great marketer. Those phrases are so subtle. But as a listener, man, you hear them and it just keeps you engaged. It's just good stuff.
Most context to solve a problem. So if you're a leader and you're allowing people to come to you with their problems and you're always giving them the answer, you're actually doing a disservice because you don't have as much.
Agree. You want to train them to think for themselves.
Information as they do. What I like to do is say to the person, hey, I need you to bring me the one challenge that we're talking about. Second is 3 viable options. And the last one is 1 recommendation. And guess what? 99.9% of the time, it's what we go with. Most entrepreneurs don't feel comfortable having their team members make decisions for them.
I love that principle. Super solid.
Because they don't feel like they evaluated all the different things that you would. So having them state it and do the research and come back to you makes you feel comfortable with their recommendation. You teach people to just solve the problem and moving the business forward. That's how you avoid a bottleneck. See, bottlenecks are called that because they're always at the top and you're the person that's causing them. Now that you understand how to lead people, how do you get the right ones in the door? Which brings us to chapter 10, the test first hiring method. I got this strategy.
It's so interesting to me how many principles or at least elements of a business system that he's covering here, and buy back your time, that I cover with our 3.3 system consulting stuff. So again, a lot of this stuff I agree with so strongly. It's really solid.
To Seth Godin. We're looking over my new startup, Clarity. He was giving me advice. We're talking about team members. And he says to me, when it comes to team members, I can't work with them until I work with them. And it occurred to me that most people hire folks that they've never worked with. They've never worked on a project or evaluated their chemistry. And they just go from interview to the person being in their life full time, which is a wild.
It's a lot. It's a risk for sure. So many people do it.
Concept. It's like not even dating a girl and going straight to marriage. So here's how to hire A players. The first step is you have to be clear. That's going back to the time audit and figuring out who can buy you the most time out of your calendar for the least amount of money that then drives revenue or efficiency. The second step is to cast your net. And this is all about ensuring that you have your team support the job promotion, you pay to run ads against a job post, call for referrals, but essentially you want to make sure you get as many people as possible to apply for that role. The third is you have to filter fast. And for me, it's a 1-minute video answering 2 questions. If they can't answer those 2 questions in that 1 minute and they come in with 3 or 4 5-minute videos, that's a quick filter that they can't read instructions or they don't know how to use technology. The fourth is profile assessment. I use this to both understand the behavior, their defaults for how they show up on teams, and then also their cognitive score to see how well can they actually pattern match and try to solve problems, because unfortunately some people's brains don't work the same as everybody else. Number 5 is is test project, and this is simulating the work. It's one of my favorite things I do. So before I work with somebody, I have them do a test project that is the exact type of work they would do on my team. That's what everybody should do. You should simulate the actual work and have all the candidates do the exact same project so you can evaluate them against each other. Number 6 is sell the future. And my whole thing there is talk about their vision for their 5 years. What do they want to?
So I love this. I'll just tell you in my own words,